Hello everyone, welcome to my very late to the party first impression of the Razer Viper V3 Pro. Starting off with build quality, it's absolutely flawless so far. No real quality issue when it comes to build. And yeah, just an overall very premium feeling mice. The coating is really good. It's a rubberized coating like the Pulsar X2 and previous Viper mice, but it doesn't quite pick up as many smudges as the Pulsar X2. X2V2, I mean, the newer generation doesn't quite pick up as much smudge and just feels just a little bit more premium. Still very grippy, very rubberized, although in my opinion it's still comparatively swampy and wet compared to the Pulsar X2 and X Lite V4 white coating. Pulsar's white coating and also Logitech's white coating tends to be a little bit drier, a little bit less swampy when your hands really sweat up. My hands are pretty sweaty. And after the coating, I'm going to be moving on to the shape. As Rocket Jump Ninja once said, shape is king. Now, I really didn't like the Viper V2, which is why I've pretty much thrown it away. It's in bits, disassembled it for parts, and now it's just the parts are scattered. But when I saw reviews of this thing and I saw they've moved the hump back similar to the Viper Mini, I was quite excited because the Deluxe M800 is one of my all-time favorite mice in terms of shape, and it's practically a Viper Mini in terms of hump profile and general shape, but at a regular Viper size. And when comparing these two, this feels very much one size up from the M800, and this is probably the first symmetrical mice that I've been able to properly palm grip, where I just put my entire hand on it and just feels super natural, feels super locked in. I can almost do it on the M800, but it's too small and I still have to resort to a claw. Another way that I can sort of describe how it feels is sort of a symmetrical 5 EC or Death Adder, and with the hump moved slightly toward the back. I feel like a lot of the flares feel very similar to the Death Adder, specifically the Death Adder Hyperspeed. These mice are similar in size to me in my hand specifically, and the thumb curve is very similar. And also compared to the Pulsar X Lite, which is more of like a typical EC shape, the hump is a little bit more towards the back, and the side profile is a little bit more curved on the thumb side, and obviously on the pinky and ring finger side, it's obviously going to be very different. After the shape, I'm going to be moving on to pretty much click qualities and skate and sensor implementation. Implementation has been flawless on 1K and 4K. I didn't test 2K because I can use 4K, and I didn't test 8K because I felt like it would be unnecessary. I don't think we're quite at the time where 8K is good yet. I've only tested for a few COD pubs so far and haven't tested in too many games. But so far from my 3-hour play session, it's been fine. My biggest issue with this mice, and in my opinion the biggest freaking letdown, is these clicks. They're using Razer opticals, but they're just so mushy. Like, I don't know why these clicks feel extremely mushy. They feel like they have very little tactility, a very heavy click, and a lot of travel. Now, the closest I had is the Pulsar X2 V2, where the click implementation is very similar. They use very similar switches. Both are LK or Light Strike, Razer. They're all the same switch lineage. This has also a very long travel and somewhat heavy actuation, but the thing is, these are at least tactile and they feel very springy. This just feels super mushy in comparison, and I don't know what causes the issue, because on the Death Adder it feels extremely crisp. which is what I expected from a Razer Switch, a Razer optical switch, but it still feels relatively crisp. Obviously not to the degree of something like an Omron optical, but it's still relatively crisp for a Razer LK Razer optical. But these are just so mushy and so heavy. I don't know what went wrong here. I I've seen on the review they're raving and like people are praising this mice. I was super excited, but then like these switches is just complete letdown. They just ruin the feeling of the mice and just makes it very difficult to get into play with a gun that's like more spammy, like a semi-auto pistol with a high fire rate cap. It just completely destroys the experience. Another issue that is less severe is the skates. The skates on the Death Adder, I feel like, and I think the biggest issue is just the size. I feel like the Death Adder size, the Death Adder Hyperspeed has the appropriate skate size where it feels relatively smooth and fast to move around on. I'm using an X-Ray Aqua Control 2, so that might have something to do with it, but the skates on the Death Adder feels quite nice, while the skates on the Viper feels very muddy, very slow, and it feels like there's a lot of drag. It is still very smooth, but again, just feels very high drag, even higher than something like a Core Pad Control or the slowest skates that I've tried so far is Hotline Game skates, which are pretty thick and very similar to a stock skate. These are even these are a little bit faster in my opinion, but that might change as I use the mice more. But yeah, that is my overview and first impression of the Razer Viper V3. Great shape, premium, but just the switches are just a complete letdown. I don't know if it's a QC issue. I don't know if it's a switch issue. I don't know if it's a click implementation issue, but it has really ruined the mice for me, and I just wish it didn't happen. I will try and put in the switches from an older Razer mice. I have some extra switches lying around from the corpse of the Viper V2. I might throw that in once I get new skates, because I'm definitely replacing these skates. These skates are abhorrent as well. If these don't improve over time, then these are probably some of the worst stock skates I've tried as well. I think they're only beaten by my Sora, which I think on my review I talked about how the adhesive literally didn't stick, and the Cyrox stock skates, which I have a Cyrox V8, and the stock skates on these are terrible. They are so scratchy. I took them off immediately and threw on Core Pad controls because I had those lying around. I'm getting some unusual way magic ice skates for both the Viper and the Cyrox. So yeah, that's the video, that's the rants, that's the first impression. Leave a like if you agree, leave a dislike if you disagree, leave a dislike if you hate me, leave a like if you hate me, leave something if you want to help me. Thank you.